Yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone, on this discussion of quantum computing and quantum encryption and looking into the future. I do have a couple of guests with me today, Ron Dilly and Neil Singa with ISSQUARED. Typically, I work on IAM, identity, and PKI architecture projects here on the pre-sales side of ISSQUARED. I'm very glad to be here today. Ron, do you want to introduce yourself and what you're coming here to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. Thank you very much for having me. My name's Ron Dilly. I work at ISSQUARED in research and development, and I've been in security for a long time, doing all kinds of things, everywhere from the board, C-level executive, down to being a programmer, a system administrator, and everything in between. And really, my role here is to be the professional contrarian. And as a professional subverter of systems, I have lots of perspective on quantum, what it is, what it isn't. So I hope to keep Adam on his toes. So thank you for having me.
Great.
Neil Singh, Business Development Executive at ISSQUARED. I develop business.
Perfect. Thanks, Neil. Great. So what we're here discussing today is how once access to practical quantum computers become available, the idea of public key encryption and associated protocols will become vulnerable. And we're here to look at why that is and how we prepare for that into the future. Part of that is predicated on the idea of quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement. Now, Ron, I know you had mentioned previously the idea of entanglement and how that intrigued you in particular. Can you speak as to why that is?
Yeah, it's also one of my contrarian views. There's lots of discussion in the security space about preparing for quantum, the implications of quantum computer attacks against large prime encryption systems, and all of that's well and good, and we should consider that, and we should plan for that within reason. But what I'm really interested in quantum is real-time communication and the implications of that, which is essentially time travel. There's been several implementations that have done long-distance communications, and specifically in cyber, long-distance communication of cryptographic material, which is kind of interesting if you can pass keys securely in a fashion that is instantaneous, and you can detect if anyone watches as they're passed, is an amazing property for encryption. But real-time communication over any distance for any computing is a really interesting thing from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. So the idea of entanglement being that you have two pieces of data on either side that have this quantum relationship such that one change to one side will have an instantaneous effect on the other side. Is that correct?
Yeah, so look, I'm not a math guy, not a physics guy. I'm again a professional subverter of systems. But take two, right? Two quantum. I don't even know what you call them, right? Two quantum particles, and
Qubits.
When one moves, qubits. I don't know if it's a qubit, but when one moves, the other moves at the same time over any distance. Now that happens at the size of an atom, but if you separate them by 80 kilometers, the same thing still happens. So that's kind of interesting. And if it happens at 80 kilometers, maybe it'll happen between here and Mars. Also a very interesting, potential technology. Instantaneous communication over long distance provides all kinds of interesting benefits for control of systems, control of devices, and discussions amongst people.
I think so. I find it interesting. It kind of serves twofold, where we have the instantaneous computing power brought on by the idea of quantum computing, but also the idea that, I'm not sure if you agree with this, Neil and Ron, but the idea that integrity could be more of a driver after a post-quantum computing type of environment, more so than cryptography is today, and the idea of encryption, where because you have that entanglement, any viewing of this conversation will essentially break that entanglement. Is that the way you understand it?
Well, again, not a physics guy, but observation at the quantum level changes, right? So if you can detect the change, then you know that it was observed. that's handy to know. There's lots of
Yeah.
problems with quantum challenges, I should say. There's lots of noise. There's lots of errors. So error correction is probably one of the biggest inhibitors right now for being able to do quantum. I mean, everything that I've read about timelines for a processor that can actually do useful things is 2030, 2035. I'll see it when I see it, and then of course it comes down to who's going to have it and who's going to benefit from it first, right? Governments, nation states are going to have it first, and yeah. So,
That's
So,
true. Certainly here. Yeah, Neil, please.
yeah. So to your point, what for businesses? What are the trade-offs between early adoption costs versus the risk of delayed implementation as it relates to cryptographically relevant quantum computers?
I do like that question. And actually, I'd like to flip it back at you, Neil. So I know you wrote an article recently in which you talked about harvesting encrypted data now with the anticipation of being able to decrypt it later. Do you have any idea how quantum computing would enable that in the future?
I see I see challenges or problems with the way in which quantum produces or works with data versus the way in which traditional computing works with data. So I think
Hmm.
the transition between what we consider a cloud on-prem or current computing devices to a quantum architecture is going to present the most challenges for companies as they start looking into this. In terms of cryptography, how do you deal with sort of the data subsets between the two different computing environments? Um, I almost see that companies will have to kind of upgrade, I suppose, completely
Hmm.
to a new model in order to implement quantum in the future. But I don't think that's anything in the near future. I think that's a little bit, sort of 5, 10 years off even the ideation around how to implement that at scale. And as
Hmm.
you can see right now, for a lot of compute needs, data centers, cloud, all these different needs in our current business, look at how do you implement, data at scale? How do you use data at scale with AI? How do you secure data at scale with cybersecurity? So I think
Hmm.
quantum has to look at all of these areas in parallel and say, well, we can't just address one migration. We have to understand it from how do we do a transition and completely to a quantum environment, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. And I do think it's important for us to be having these discussions now. As Ron had said, none of us are mathematicians by trade. So we're not here to learn, how to do this in our own lab necessarily. We have nation states who are working on this themselves. But in terms of now versus later, I do know there are plenty of companies who are working on post quantum cryptography type of solutions. It sounds like they, like for example, the PKFX certificate lifecycle management appliance relies on the Talus HSM for its post quantum cryptography. And I think what they describe is being able to overlay new software into this hardware module to support cryptographic other protocols as they come out, similar to what is it, BB84 and E91, to accomplish that type of asymmetric encryption as it is post quantum. Uh, do you feel that that's accurate in the way that what you see in the field today about what's being offered for post quantum solutions? Either one.
Uh, Can I just throw in a quick question that we got in the chat from Andre?
Sure.
With the rate at which AI is growing in capabilities, do you anticipate that this will reduce the time frame in which quantum computing will be fully available? And so that connects with your question too, Adam, around how do we deploy quantum technology now?
Mhm.
And ISSQUARED has an application and a device that is designed for quantum cryptography with PKI. But if you guys could build on that question that Andre asked, that would be great.
So I'm going to turn. Oh, go ahead, Adam. Were you going to say something?
Oh,
Now,
I know
I was,
Neil has some AI projects of his own. So
nice. I was going to turf this on to you. So
yeah.
uh, look, no, personally, I don't think that AI will fundamentally change the complexity, difficulty, and challenges that are being fought in universities and in government labs on how to get enough qubits without errors to be able to do, hard math, to break a large
Mhm.
prime as a reasonable security mechanism. So no, I don't think it's going to have an impact. Now, conversely, I think that quantum scale processors will have an almost immeasurable impact on the power of AI. Um,
Mhm.
right? Just because of their computing power is orders of magnitude better than what we have. So that's interesting. But again, timescales 2030, 2035, and then to follow up on your and Neil's comments about quantum ready, I talked to a lot of people about these initiatives like quantum ready initiatives, and the vast majority of them I kind of distill into the make sure it's not impossible to replace your algorithms if you have to.
Mhm.
That's the fundamental thing. Like your example with our product and being able to add software, replace software on the hardware devices, right? Great,
Mhm.
right? Don't pigeonhole. But if I was going to be spending money on hardening my environment because I'm a professional subverter of systems, I would leverage this in the interface. I would be much less
Mhm.
concerned with spending money to make sure that I had the best quantum thingy in 2030 and instead spend a lot of time and money making sure that I had no vulnerabilities or ways to exploit the interfaces between the quantum and non-quantum because that's what the attackers are going to attack.
Mhm.
That's where the leverage is. So, patching still and probably will for as long as we're around be the cheapest, fastest, most efficient way to reduce attack surface. I mean, understand that with quantum, any coin that relies on large primes to protect the secrets falls. So
Mhm.
if you have digital coins that use large primes, understand that at some point nation states are just going to be able to pop open and steal your ducats. So that's probably something to worry about. But it's not until 2030s ish.
Yeah, crypto wallets. That will be interesting to see if there's a that comes to a head in the near future. But yeah, I guess the way I see these technologies, they're both coming to a head. If you look at quantum computing and AI technologies, and yeah, the idea of an LLM being able to, or a cluster of LLMs being able to have simultaneous computing powers. Yeah, I think a GPU compared to a CPU in terms of computing power, but brought to another level. Yeah, that could really end up, I don't know, advancing both technologies in a very quick way. That isn't done today. I think of AI hallucinations and how vibe coding hasn't quite turned out to be the golden goose as people thought it might. And not that it's not a great tool, but I think with these cutting edge technologies, AI is probably not going to be a great tool for you because really it's looking for existing data to bring into those models to make intelligent decisions, whereas quantum computing is more cutting edge. So yeah, in the future, again, well, I think we're all in agreement. 5, 10 years, we'll see what happens. But until then, yeah, Ron, what you said about patching, I think that's really important to keep your eye on the ball. As we're not trying to say the sky is falling today, but I think the discussion is still really appropriate for what we're doing.
So I think what Ron said before about
Mm.
parallel computing, so the ability of quantum to be in two different places at the same time, that communication protocol will be,
Hmm.
in my opinion, the first real advancement that we see in quantum at
Mhm.
I agree.
at the industry level. That does a lot for technology like hybrid cloud. It does a lot for data centers and parallel DR and backup and all the kind of things that we use in I guess today's environment or a legacy environment. The communication protocol going to quantum will enable us to do that better. And so I think we're going to see engineering with a focus on that, because in maybe 15 years' time, the commercialization of that could be a reality. I don't think we're going to see, to Adam's point, the data distribution going to quantum computing very quickly, because the math,
Yeah.
that's the hard part. It's
And
the
the
math.
cost.
And the cost.
Right. The cost per
Um,
byte problem for quantum in production is going to be massive for the first 5 years. So
Sure.
it'd be like Cray back in the day.
and
Cray
it's
that you can buy
extreme,
for $5,000 today.
and
Right.
it's extremely interesting when you look at a quantum computer and how it's built today. So they're very large devices, first of all, right? It kind of reminds me of what IBM was doing post World War II, filling an entire room with a big computer to process very simple mathematics, essentially, Turing machines and things like that. So we're going to have to see out many decades of transition before quantum gets into what we call a semiconductor, if that makes sense to the audience.
And I do personally worry about the companies and organizations that will have the capital to fund these research initiatives, and whether they will hold those behind. Certainly, with the last question of what we were talking about with AI and the current state of quantum computing. I mean, again, these are large entities where it's not trickling down to the masses necessarily. Maybe capitalism will pick up the reign and ship it down to the masses, but I wonder if there is a risk that that this will, I don't know, lead toward a backwards progression of computing for the masses. Do you think that's at risk?
What do you mean by backward progression?
Or the best technology will be hoarded by those who have created it, and they'll use it to their
That's the way
advantage.
it always is.
That's
All
a
the
really
best hardware
good
is
point, yeah.
hoarded. All the best algorithms are hoarded. All the best O days are hoarded. Of course. When we
Yeah.
hear about it, it's just because they found, the people who built it have found something better, and they can now monetize that, without getting the benefit just for themselves. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I personally believe that there's already brute force hardware ways to break most encryption systems, right? If you're a
Mhm.
nation state and you can build silicon from scratch, specialized equipment, then large primes, I don't think are an impossible problem. So,
No, it really doesn't
yeah.
seem that way.
But quantum seems to make it trivial in theory.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I've done some reading up on, because it sounds like denial of service and brute force will still be relevant in post quantum cryptography, and how that can still be a nuisance. And certainly we have ways around that today. I'm curious, and you may not have an answer, Ron or Neil, if we will have solutions that differ today in terms of brute force protection um, in a post quantum world. I'm curious what that would look like.
look, I've been doing this a long time, and quantum is just another in a long series of technological innovations that have changed the way we work and the way we defend and the way we attack. There will be
Mhm.
more. There's going to be stuff past quantum or in the intervening years. It's going to happen. The basics are
Mhm.
where you prove your value to the business.
Mhm. That's
Do
great.
patching, do vulnerability management, understand your assets, understand your inventory, understand your attack surface, work the problems in a prioritized fashion based on risk. And you're
Mhm.
going to have to do those things regardless of the changes in the nature of the aggressor and the changes in the capabilities that defenders can use and fundamental changes in technology like quantum. So,
Certainly, layer defense will not go away, and yeah, it's important to keep in mind as we move forward. Great. Uh,
no stump the chump. I was expecting some stump the chump questions.
yeah, let's go, audience. What's hmm. Any other last thoughts here? So we talked about timeline. I'm curious what other technologies will open up in a post quantum world. That's a little speculative. It could go any direction.
Yeah, I mean,
My,
sky's the limit. Go ahead, Neil.
my concern is we don't quite have the utility to take advantage of quantum compute yet.
Yeah.
If the best thing we could come up with in current computing standards is language models and AI, let's assume,
Hmm.
um, and a lot of them are unoptimized in the way they use compute right now, then I think human beings are what's holding quantum back.
Interesting.
And I want to make it sound really scary to the audience and say that if AI becomes smarter than human beings and learns how to use quantum for itself, we can make a cool movie out of
Well,
that.
I stand by previous talks that I've given. I really don't think AI is going to eat the world. Um, but I could picture our lack of understanding of AI doing it.
Hmm.
So we'll just
Yeah, I
wait
do
to
worry about our reliance on
yeah,
those moving forward.
yeah. People don't understand what AI is. They don't understand what it does, what it doesn't do, what it's good at, what it's not good at, and
Hmm.
uh, and that is going to lead to people doing silly things, and that I think is going to cause problems. So quantum is just look. As I said in the beginning, I think real time communication opens up so many interesting things from an architecture perspective and a security perspective
Hmm.
when you start to consider compute, storage, analysis as a planetary capability where large groups of computational devices collaborate in real time across large distances. It,
Hmm.
I think it'll fundamentally reshape how we do with compute. It's just going to be different. It's not going to be why I built a massive supercomputer in my office over here in this state or in this country. It's going to be I have a compute like telescopes, like the global telescope footprints. I have a compute that is 75 supercomputers all across the globe that are participating at the same time working on the same problem.
Hmm.
And that's interesting to me.
It does seem to introduce other issues. Certainly, if you can have computational skills that are so quick, you could create problems just as quick, and see what that looks like.
Luckily,
But
it
yeah,
doesn't take more CPU to cause more problems.
that's right.
It
But yeah,
just
it seems like
requires a
entire
devious
industries
mind.
could fall. That's right. Yeah, devious mind and spare time, right? But infrastructure, as we know, it could change actually, and entire industries could be forced to pivot or perish. That would be
Yeah, Andre
interesting.
brings up a second question, which I've actually talked about, is, and this is not quantum per se, it's AI. The reliance on AI, and they've done studies now that show reduces our cognitive abilities.
Hmm.
So I think all organizations need to be mindful and thoughtful about AI and how to integrate AI and staff together such that it stays a force multiplier while staff, especially specialist professions, cybersecurity people, lawyers, etc., continue to
Hmm.
grow and learn as professionals while using the force multiplication that AI provides. Because if the dependency on AI becomes the focal point, then over time the professional's knowledge and understanding will degrade, and the senior people who've spent years and years and years toiling for the knowledge that they have between their ears retire or move on to management, then all of that learned understanding is lost. And at least for the current generation of AI, which are created based on learnings from past knowledge, um, means that the chance of creative new coming from that out of an AI is very small. Approaching,
Right.
I would argue, approaching zero.
Hmm. Yeah, I think of the term "use it or lose it," or the saying "use it or lose it," and we already see that in school systems today. I find it very interesting to read up on teachers' reports on what the classrooms look today, and certainly we have a problem keeping our phones out of our hands, children and adults alike. And yeah, it will be interesting to see what struggles we have in the future, keeping that compute away, and yeah, struggling with how we better ourselves. and why we would want to in the future. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Ron, Neil, thanks very much for joining us. Again, this is a new format for IS Exchange and IS Squared. We want to have your feedback if you don't mind. Andre, thanks for the questions. And yeah, very much enjoy this today. And please join us next time and keep an eye out for our announcements. Take care. Steve, thanks for introducing us and have a great day.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody for joining, and we will make a copy of this if you want to check it out on our website at ISSQUAREDinc.com events. All right, thank you for joining and have a great day, and we'll see you soon.